Today, the sources we're unpacking are, well, they're a collection of true, often horrifying, and frankly just unbelievable stories of catastrophic failure. Yeah, these are the cases where the decision-making process goes completely spectacularly off the rails. So our mission today, it isn't just to find some dark humor in this. We're trying to use these incidents as a kind of chilling study and risk assessment. Exactly, we're looking for the common psychological threads. I mean, why do people consciously override instinct, common sense, even basic physics? It's often driven by things like social pressure, maybe the promise of fame, or just profound impatience. And we're going to start where the stakes were maybe highest and the audience was the largest. We're talking about fatal stunts driven entirely by performance and the pursuit of internet celebrity. Let's jump right in with the infamous Encyclopedia test from 2017. This involved Pedro Ruiz and his girlfriend, Mona Lisa Perez. Right, they were YouTubers. They already had a channel, but they wanted that next big viral hit. They did. And so they swapped their usual harmless content for something truly extreme. And the plan itself feels like it came from bad movie physics. Pedro was going to hold a 1.5-inch thick encyclopedia to his chest. A thick book, sure. And Mona Lisa would shoot it from about a foot away. The idea was that the paper would just absorb the impact. In front of an audience of over 30 friends and neighbors, mind you. But the immediate catastrophic failure point wasn't just believing a book could stop a bullet. It was their choice of weapon. What did they use? They used a Desert Eagle. Wow. Desert Eagle. So for anyone who doesn't know, that's one of the most powerful handguns you can possibly get, right? It is. Our sources call it one of the most powerful handguns in the world. It is designed to punch through tough targets. And they pitted it against paper. Exactly. They confused volume with density, cinematic drama with actual ballistic science. The outcome was instant. The bullet went straight through. Pedro died instantly. Mona Lisa pleaded guilty to manslaughter, served 180 days. They got their viral video, but they paid the ultimate price for ignoring the most basic laws of physics. That same failure to understand physics, or maybe just hubris, takes us to the case of the Unbreakable window from 1993. Ah, yes, the Toronto lawyer Gary Hoy. So Gary worked on the 24th floor, and he had this party trick, I guess, a very bizarre habit. He would show off the building's great construction by running and slamming his body into the window to prove how strong the glass was. He'd done this for years, right, in front of visiting law students, showing them it was totally secure, which is a classic example of risk normalization. Success in the past validates dangerous behavior in the future. But there's a critical difference between the glass and the thing holding the glass in place. Absolutely. So on this one particular day, he does this stunt again. He throws himself hard at the window, and the glass held perfectly, just like it always did. But the years of repetitive stress, all those impacts, had weakened the window frame itself. The seals were compromised, so the glass didn't break. The entire window frame popped out of the building. The whole thing. And Gary plunged 24 stories down, apparently riding the window frame all the way to the pavement. He was so focused on one component, the glass, he completely ignored the stress on the entire system. That combination of hubris and a critical miscalculation, it leads us right to Eric Barra's DIY bungee jump in 1997. Eric was 22, and he decided this 70-foot railroad bridge in Virginia was the perfect spot for a homemade adrenaline rush. He used multiple bungee cords, which he duct taped together. You can almost see the logic, but he missed the most important step, the math. Yeah, the math. So the cords he taped together were, already shorter than the 70-foot drop. Yeah. But the one thing Eric completely failed to account for was his stretch, the elasticity. Exactly. Once his body weight pulled on them, they became longer than 70 feet. He hit the pavement and died instantly. And there was this heartbreaking quote from his grandmother. She told reporters he was always so smart in school, which just shows you this isn't about IQ. It's about the failure to connect that textbook knowledge to a real-world, high-stakes situation. When intelligence meets that kind of recklessness, the results are just always tragic. Exactly. And that flows right into our next category. Stories of instant regret, often fueled by, impatience, alcohol, and explosive materials. Let's start with a really recent one from the source material. The Patriotic Hat from July 4th, 2024. Alan Ramagru, a 41-year-old HVAC technician celebrating South Carolina. He was dressed as Uncle Sam, top hat and everything. And around 10:20 at night, he decides to, escalate the festivities. A bit, yeah. He places a large firework right on top of his top hat and lights the fuse while it's on his head. His wife later said she saw him do it and thought he was just messing around. She figured he'd pull it off before it actually exploded. But he didn't. He died instantly from massive head trauma. He literally became the finale of his own fireworks show. The failure of impulse control here is just staggering. But it's maybe even more shocking in the case of Marco back in 2005. The man who wanted to clean his chimney, right, he figured he needed a chain, a broom, and something heavy to weigh it all down. And his choice for that heavy object was an old grenade. I mean, you'd think there are rocks, bricks, anything but a live explosive. You would. But what's truly fascinating here, the fatal flaw wasn't just choosing the grenade. It was how he decided to attach it to the chain. He didn't just tie it on, no. He decided to weld the live explosive to the chain. Oh no! The moment the welding torch touched the metal, the heat and friction detonated it. Marco was killed instantly. The chimney, by the way, was completely untouched. The tragic irony is just relentless, and that theme of impatience, of not waiting, that's also what killed Philip in 2004. The lava lamp incident. He was just waiting for his lava lamp to warm up, which, takes forever. It does. Philip, who's 24, decided he could speed up the process. He put the sealed glass lamp on a hot stove. That seems like such a fundamental misunderstanding of how pressure in glass works. It really is. It's a perfect example of ignoring engineered limitations. Lava lamps are designed for gentle heat, maybe up to 40 degrees Celsius. A stove can get hundreds of degrees hotter. So basically became a bomb, a glass bomb. The pressure built up, it exploded, and a piece of glass became shrapnel. It went directly into his heart. He died trying to save a few minutes. Moving from these solitary mistakes to conflicts, I guess, fueled by ego, our next segment is about pranks, dares, and rivalry escalating into tragedy. We can start with the famous Italian footballer Luciano Riccione, known as the Blonde Angel, back in 1977. Right, he and a teammate decided to stage a fake robbery at their friend Bruno's jewelry store in Rome, just as a joke. A really bad joke. They came in with their faces covered, waving guns, yelling, but there was this critical piece of context that Riccione completely ignored. The store had been robbed for real just a few weeks earlier. Exactly. And because of that, Bruno had bought a loaded shotgun for protection. So the teammate gives up the joke pretty quickly, but Riccione, he stays in character. He's committed to the bit. He refuses to drop his weapon. Bruno, fearing for his life, shoots him in the chest. And his last words were just a joke. It's just a joke. Bruno was released on grounds of self-defense. A life just ended over an ill-timed prank. It was a failure to realize that not everyone is sharing your reality. And that lack of shared reality, especially when you mix in competition and alcohol, can be deadly. Like the scooter duel in 2004, two Taiwanese college students drinking, and they realize they're both interested in the same girl. So they decide to settle it. Like medieval knights, but with scooters, pretty much. The rules are simple. They would joust, riding head-on at each other at full speed, about 50 miles per hour. The first person to turn away loses. It's all about not losing face, the fear of being seen as a coward, and neither one was willing to be that person. They crashed head-on. Both died instantly. And the tragic punchline. The girl later confirmed she wasn't interested in either of them. That same dynamic, ego overriding basic survival, we see it in the road rage showdown in Berkeley in 2021. Right, two drivers have a minor fender bender on Interstate 80. Instead of pulling over to the shoulder, they get out to argue in the middle of the highway. In active traffic, they're totally focused on each other, on the damage, ignoring everything around them. A Mini Cooper driver, who was swerving to avoid the initial crash, couldn't avoid them and hit both of them, hit and killed both of them instantly. They survived the crash only to die fighting about it. It's an incredible lesson in prioritizing ego over safety, which I guess brings us to our final group of incidents. The ones that are just pure absurdity. Yes, the worst kind of improbable chain reactions. Yeah. Let's talk about the water thief from Italy in 2022. Okay, so it was Easter Monday, everything's closed. 46-year-old man breaks into a grocery store just because he was thirsty. He just wanted a bottle of water. But instead of taking one from a fridge or an open shelf, he goes to this massive Jenga-style tower of water boxes stacked for display. And he decides to pull a bottle from the middle of the bottom layer. Anyone who has ever played Jenga knows exactly what happens next. The entire tower collapses on top of him. He was crushed to death by it, the very water he was trying to steal, yeah. Store workers found his arm sticking out from under the pile the next day. Wow. And then you have the devastating story of Jennifer Strange from 2007. The radio contest, Hold Your Wee for a Wee, a mother of three. Yeah, the contest was to drink huge amounts of water and just hold it in. Last one standing wins a Nintendo Wii. And she won. She won the Wii. She won the contest. But she died the next day from acute water intoxication. The excess water caused her brain to swell, and her family sued the station, right? They did, and they won $16.5 million. It's just this terrible example of how a contest, a prize, can make people ignore their own body's distress signals. And sometimes the failure is just assuming the natural world is predictable, like the sleeping bear from 1906. A Pennsylvania hunter finds this huge black bear just lying completely still on the ground. He assumes it's dead, a lucky find. And he just immediately starts cutting it up, no checking for vitals, nothing, just starts carving. The bear was only sleeping. So it wakes up while being cut into, and as you can imagine, it tore the hunter to pieces. And finally, the most improbable, just unbelievably tragic chain reaction. The falling dog in Buenos Aires, 1988. This whole sequence starts when a poodle named Kochi falls 13 floors from a balcony and lands directly on a 75-year-old woman, Marta Espina, killing her instantly. But it doesn't stop there. A second woman, Edith Solo, rushes to see what happened. She's distracted by the horror of it, walks into the street, and is hit by a bus and dies. And then an older man, watching all of this chaos unfold from the crowd, suffers a fatal heart attack. So one falling poodle killed 3 people in about 5 minutes. The odds of that are just astronomical. But before we wrap up, we do need to touch on something important. Not every one of these shocking stories that gets passed around is actually true. You mean some of them are just too perfect, too grimly ironic to be real? Exactly. Take the story of the umbrella trick. The German street performer, who supposedly swallows a folded umbrella, accidentally hits the release button, and it snaps open in his throat, killing him. It sounds like the perfect fable of performance art gone wrong. It feels like it should be true. It's a hugely popular Darwin Award legend. But sword swallowers themselves later confirmed it's just impossible. A folded umbrella is way too wide to fit down a human throat. So it's a good reminder to always verify, even when a story seems perfect. Definitely. So, after all that, what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've covered everything from extreme vanity to simple thirst. I think the core lesson is the incredible consistency with which humans can fail to assess risks. Absolutely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, these deaths happened because people overrode instinct or established knowledge. The lawyer relied on past success until the whole system failed. The Jenga thief ignored basic structural integrity for instant gratification. This isn't just about avoiding guns or grenades. Not at all. It's about critical thinking. It's about assessing a novel situation before you commit to a plan that might be deeply flawed. That's the real challenge, isn't it? If we learned anything from the lawyer with the window, it's that success can breed complacency. So, where in your own life are you maybe relying on past success to justify a risk you haven't fully reevaluated? And maybe consider this. Almost every story we've talked about had a critical second where the person could have stopped. The welding torch hadn't touched the metal yet. The final pull hadn't been made on the water box. The scooter hadn't accelerated to full speed. The pause. Yeah. And how much of avoiding catastrophe is just forcing yourself to take one catastrophic failure? Yeah, the key lesson here isn't about being a genius. It's about that split second between impulse and action. That's where your safety really lies.